According to Peter Thiel, every successful business is a monopoly. Now this sounds like a terrible idea for two reasons. First of all, what about Pepsi and Coke, Nike and Adidas, BMW and Mercedes, etc.? Businesses that compete with each other in the same market that don't have monopolies that are also successful. And second of all, isn't this fucking illegal? And who is this Peter Thiel guy? Is he locked up in jail somewhere for illegal business practices? Well, it turns out he was smart enough to make the first outside investment in Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook, and he co-founded PayPal and Palantir Technologies, all of which made him a billionaire and the most influential investor in Silicon Valley. But let's get back to this thing about monopoly. Why would you intend to establish a monopoly to succeed in business? Isn't that extremely unethical? Well, it turns out that when he says monopoly, he's not referring to an illegal bully. He's instead referring to a company that's so good at what they do that nobody else can compete with them. Now, this seems like obvious business advice. Who wouldn't want to do something so well that nobody else can compete with them? But it turns out that in practice, a lot of entrepreneurs do not do this. What they do instead is go into a big market and try to get a tiny piece of it. And they think that because it's such a big market, it'll be easy to get a tiny piece, and that will make them very successful. But it turns out that in doing that, they'll have to compete with all these giant companies that their startup isn't really differentiated from, and they won't have a chance to succeed. The only way they can succeed, according to Peter Thiel, is to start in a very small and specific market, to quickly establish a monopoly over that market, and then quickly expand to markets that are similar to it. And this is how most great companies have started. Amazon did not start by selling everything you could think of. They started by selling books online, a very small, specific niche market that they could quickly establish a monopoly over.
In essence, at the very beginning, he's signaling to shareholders, I have a strategy to monopolize the market.
And then they quickly expanded to similar markets until they were selling everything you could think of online. And this is also what Facebook did. They did not start as a social networking site for everybody. It started just at Harvard, and then it slowly expanded to other colleges across America until it was in basically every university, and then it expanded to other demographics until basically everybody was on the website. One of his main points in his book 0 to 1 is that if you don't establish a monopoly in your initial market, you don't have a chance of succeeding. Now this sounds really hard, but luckily Peter has come up with 4 strategies that every great company uses to establish that initial monopoly. The first thing they do is build a product with network effects. This means that as more people use it, the product gets better. A really good example of a product with a network effect is Venmo. When it first started out and didn't have a lot of users, the people that did have Venmo didn't use it very much because their friends didn't have it and they couldn't make payments to them.
Why the fuck?
But as the app grew and grew and grew and got more customers, the customers that did have it started to use it more because the product improved because they could make more payments on it because more people had it. And similarly, ChatGPT gets better as more and more people use it because as people use it, the algorithm gets better. Now, the second thing you have to do to establish a monopoly is develop a proprietary technology. This basically means you have to make something that's either completely original or 10 times better than the current solution. Now, this again sounds kind of crazy. 10 times better? What if you just make something twice as good? Won't that be more than enough? Well, there are 2 main reasons he says that your product has to be 10 times better than its competitor. And the first is that overcoming brand loyalty is very difficult. For example, if you make a phone that's twice as good as anything out there, it'll still be hard to sell as a very small startup because you'll be competing with the iPhone, which people have years of brand loyalty to and don't want to switch to unless something is way better than it. And I think the second reason he says 10 times better is that he's from Silicon Valley, and in that world of software startups, it's a lot easier to make a huge improvement instead of something that's 2 or 3 times better than its competitor. Now, the third thing he says a startup business needs to succeed is an economy of scale right from the beginning. This basically means that most of their expenses are fixed costs, and either very little or none of their expenses are variable expenses. This means that as their company grows and they get more and more users very rapidly, they don't have to spend much more money as they grow. If you want to learn more about the business advice from the book without reading the whole thing, check out the free PDF I put in the description. It has a lot more information on stuff like managing and choosing co-founders and shit like that. So thanks for watching, and I hope this was useful.